Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Georgie Man, and I'm your friendly neighborhood anime and manga fan. I love all things anime and all things manga, and I'm here today to talk about Mashle, Magic and Muscles, episode 8. So, what did I think about this week's episode? I personally thought this week's episode was great, and we got to see a lot of Lemon, and I would go as far as to say that she was the main focus of this episode because she was the driving force behind all the events that transpire in this week's episode. Now, before I go any further with this week's episode, I just wanted to give you guys a quick reminder to make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you guys can be up to date with all my martial magic and muscles, as well as all my anime and manga content that I'll be providing in this channel. It really helps out a lot, and I would really appreciate it if you guys could subscribe to my YouTube channel. So if you guys could, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into this week's episode. So this week's episode starts off where we see the Magia Lupus member with the mask, and we see that he just defeated one of the strongest Orca people in that dorm. And this character just keeps thinking about Mash. It's like, maybe me and you are the same. And, you know, he kind of puts a target on Mash. And, you know, we cut to Lance and Mash. And Lance is just telling, like, Mash, like, hey, this might be dangerous. Like, these people are no joke. And that means that we can't be in the defensive. We got to take the fight to them. And throughout it all, you just see Mash kind of, like, in his own little world. He's just making, you know, pastries. He's making, you know, these delicious buns and the cream puffs, and we see that, you know, Lance is just like, are you serious? That whole sequence was funny because you just see Mash, like, in other words, Mash, I think he's so confident that he can just take them all down that he's just like, let me continue my cooking and just none of that. I got no time for all these fodder, because to Mash they're probably all fodder, and we know they are because Mash is insanely OP. And you know, I'm very curious to see how, you know, how much of a big fight the members of Magia Lupus can, you know, take to Mash, because right now Mash hasn't really struggled at all, really. The only one he really struggled with was the headmaster, and obviously he's the strongest in the school. And even then, like, Mash was just like an endurance test. So I'm very curious to see how strong he can become later in the series. So following from that, we see that Lemon walks into the room and she's like, hey, Tom, something happened with him and we got to check up on him. And Mash is like, okay. And what we see is that pretty much Tom, he's lost his magic for a temporary period of time. He doesn't know why, but he can't use magic. And if I had to take a guess, I guarantee you guys it's going to be the Magia Lupus member, the one that, you know, canceled Lance's magic in last week's episode. So you see the entire dorm pretty much just get nerfed. They all kind of lost their magic for temporary period of time, but they don't know when they'll come back. And what transpires after that is pretty much Mash and Lance and Lemon, they're just like, yeah, we can't let this happen, let's do this. And a nice little moment with Lemon was that she gives Mash a little cream puff looking thing with a ribbon, and it's so cute. I don't know if it's a plushie. I hope it's a plushie, because she's like, hey, have this one, you know, take it with you and, you know, go to sleep with it. So I hope it's a plushie, because if it's not, you can't imagine all the ants, all the bugs that are gonna be, you know, trying to munch that while you're asleep. Like, no, that's not good news, Mash. You gotta get rid of it, whether you eat it or, you know, dispose of it. But I'm 99% sure. I like to think it is a plushie. But we see that pretty much they're like, okay, let's do this. And what we see later on in the night is that Lance and Mash are like, okay, let's, you know, do this at night. Let's kind of explore the school and see what's gonna happen. And what we see is that Finn and Dodd, they kind of, you know, put themselves in the mix by, you know, kind of, you know, sneaking around that night too. So now they're part of this. So now it's gonna be Finn, Lance, Mash, and Dodd. They're all gonna take down Magia Lupus. And what happens is they're walking at night, and we see that there's this shadowy figure kind of like walking, and we see that it's Lemon from the back. And, you know, they're all like, okay, there's Lemon. What is she up to? Why is she walking weird? And then we cut to Lemon, just, you see her face, and it's a puppet. And what we've seen so far is that, you know, the Magia Lupus member, the leader, he's the one that can turn people into puppets. So I'm mostly certain that he did that. Like, he turned Lemon into a puppet. Why exactly, we don't know. If I had to speculate, it probably has to do something with, you know, he knows that Mash has some kind of connection with her. So I'm mostly certain that he's doing this to provoke Mash to have a fight, because he doesn't have, you know, the best of times with Mash. He met him once and he kind of doesn't like him at all. So I think that he wants to dispose of Mash as soon as possible. So what happens after all that, you know, they follow this puppet, the puppet disappears, and they're like, whoa, what happened? And they find this magical door. Mash, the Giga Chad that he is, breaks this unbreakable door by, you know, the loss of science. You know, he elevates this door, sends it flying through the ricochet. Insane physics, love it, fantastic. But we see that they go into this room, and this room is kind of like, it's empty. They're just like, what is this? And like, it's a room that not even the teachers probably know about. And who's in there is one of the members of Magia Lupus. And this member specifically there to be kind of like the gatekeeper. Now, this member, he's like, hey, I'm not letting you guys walk in. Like, I'm here specifically to make sure that nobody steps in our business. And, Mash and Lance, they're all like, oh, we can take him. Like, he's whatever. But Dodd steps in and he's like, no, let me take care of it. So Dodd, he wants to prove himself because last time he got saved by Mash. So, he wants to prove himself that, hey, I can do this. Because not also, he has a chip on his shoulder because last time Mash saved him, the guy even tells him like, oh, so you're the guy that beat, the metal magician guy. And even Dodd is like, well, partially, I mean, I did help. But we know it wasn't. Mash is the one that took care of it. So he has to prove himself as a worthy fighter. And what happens is that he does prove himself as a worthy fighter because he does, fight this guy. And by the way, this guy has a bootleg roast whip from Kurama from Yu Yu Hakusho. This guy, he calls it roast whip too. So I was just like, man, that is such a bootleg. Like, my man, you suck. You do not have the privilege of calling your weapon a roast whip. Like, no, not at all. So I'm glad that he got bodied. Dodd takes care of it real quick. And he actually does a lot of like strategic maneuvering when he comes to this battle because he actually puts some landmines in the floor. And he tells the guy, hey, if you step on these, you're going to blow up. And the guy's like, why would you do that? Like, you're so stupid. I'm not going to step on it. And throughout the fight, this guy has the upper hand on Dodd. But eventually he gets Dodd in like a grapple hook with the roast whip. And he slams Dodd in the floor, and he's like, this is over, you lose. And then Dodd is like, you forgot that I did never specify that you have to step on those landmines. Anything that touches them will be set off. So this whip that slammed the floor, he touched one of those spots and made the guy it's a chain reaction. Everything started blowing up. The guy gets decimated. He just gets bodied. And we see that the reason Dodd had a beef with this guy is because he was so good looking, and he just hates that because, Dodd wishes he could have like, the Riz. We know that Dodd is, he just wants to be a heartthrob that gets all the ladies, but he really isn't that. So he's just a hater in that regard. And to put the cherry on top on this whole entire thing, his feud with this guy, even when defeated, he still has a pose and he still looks cool. Like, and Dodd is just like, even when he's defeated, this guy still has wrist. That's insane. That whole fight was funny, and it really showed Dodd, as a combatant. He's very smart. He's a good combatant, and he proved himself, he proved his worth in this episode when it comes to a fighting standpoint. And what happens after all that? Well, I guess there was a contingency plan if that guy were to fall, because you see the entire floor just start being sucked in, and they fall, and what you see is they all got separated. And that was a very strategic moment for Magia Lupus because they did this on purpose to separate them. So now they're going to be having all these individual fights. And we see them paired up. Lance meets this guy. He's the number 3 in the group. And we see that Finn and Dodd got together. And they're going to fight the number 4 and 5. And, Mash, he's going to fight the mass person. And that's the number 2. So we split them into 3 different divisions where we have, Lance fighting the 3rd one. And Finn and Dodd fighting, 4 and 5. And then Mash fighting the number 2. So I'm very curious to see how these individual fights go down, because in particular Finn and Dodd's, because Finn, I think, will prove himself in this fight. I don't think Dodd can carry the entire fight by himself. And so far in this show, Finn has been taking a backseat when it comes to his capabilities of magic. So I'm very curious to see how far his magic can go and, his potential, because, he's kind of a pushover. He's kind of scared, like he's kind of a coward. And I think that the next time we see him in the fight, we'll prove us wrong. He'll be like, he'll be a Gohan type of character probably. He has an awakening, he's super OP, or he might have a secret technique that only he knows but he never uses because he's dangerous. But with all that being said, what did you guys think about this week's episode? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys think it was alright? Whatever you guys thought, let me know in the comment section down below. Also, thank you so much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more martial magic and muscles, as well as more anime and manga content in the near future. But yeah, with that all being said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye bye.